Alright guys, let's take another approach to looking at pi. The first thing we need to do is just get some more room on the screen. So I'm just going to move or shift some of this stuff over. Cool. Now let's pretend that you were to somehow cut this circle right here. And your next goal, what you're wanting to do, is unravel the circle or straighten it out so that it's one straight bar. So let's say your starting point is way over here. So this is the starting point of your circle, and what you're going to do is unroll it like you would a rug. You're going to push it in this direction. So let's erase that information real quick. Now you've started to unroll your circle. You're unraveling it until it's all rolled out. Now you have one nice straight bar. And the next question is, well, how many units long is this bar? And you're going to use the diameter of the circle to help you figure that out. Notice I've said units, and I didn't say feet necessarily. We'll talk about that in a second, but what I need to do right now is make a copy of the diameter. But I'm not actually going to use the diameter because there's a lot of information here. So let's just use the copy of your bar from your company because it's the same length as the diameter. Okay, so we've got our first bar on the screen, and I'm going to just slide it on down and line it up with the starting point of the circle that's been unraveled here. And we know that the length of this bar, well, it's the same length as the diameter, so it's 1 foot. But earlier I said we're going to see how many units long this circle is. And I said, notice I didn't say feet. The reason is you will not always be dealing with this circle, and you'll not always be dealing with units and feet. Sometimes you'll deal with units in centimeters, or sometimes you'll deal with units in inches. So you're going to have different circles, and they're going to have various units depending on what you're dealing with. So let's erase these units real quick, and we're just going to treat this one bar as 1 unit in this case. So we'll write 1 unit below here. But we know that this 1 unit in our company, well, that represents 1 bar. So we could just write 1 bar here. 1 bar, which happens to be 1 foot. So we could write 1 foot if needed. Now this 1 bar, or this 1 foot, only works for your company or the diameter of this circle. It's not going to work for all the other circles that you're going to encounter in math. That's why we're saying it's 1 unit in length. Well, now let's get another bar, a second bar here, and we're going to line it up with the first bar as best as possible here. Okay, and from here what I want to do is just make a note that this line right here represents the first unit of the first bar. And now we have a second bar, so that's got to be our second unit. So this is, if we were to add both units up together, this happens to be 2 units in length. Or we could think about it as 2 bars long, or 2 feet in length. Well, we still haven't figured out how many units long this circle is, so let's lay out another bar, line it up as best as possible, and we're going to just say that this space here represents 2 units of length, and now we're on to our third unit here. 3 units. Or we can think about it as having 3 bars laid down, which happen to be 3 feet in length. So the end of this third bar, well, it represents the benchmark for 3 units. So this is 3 units in length so far, but the entire circle still hasn't been covered up. So we've still got a little bit extra space to cover up. Well, there's still a fraction of the circle to account for, so you've got to use the diameter of the circle to help you figure out how many units this piece of the circle is. Okay, so I'm going to throw another bar up on the screen, but before we even try to line it up, let's just erase some of it real quick because we're not going to use all of it. So I'm just getting rid of the part of the bar I know I'm not going to use already. Now let's just take this bar and we're going to slide it on up as best as possible. And I'm just going to shade that benchmark in again real quick. Alrighty. And let's get rid of the part of the circle or bar that we're not going to use. Well, when you laid your bar down, you didn't use the entire length of your bar or the entire length of the diameter, which happens to be 1 foot. You only used a fraction of it because you cut some off. In fact, you only use 14/100ths of a foot, or in this case here, the final length of the circle is only 0.14 units. We're going to write that down, 0.14 units. Or in the case of your company, you only used up 14/100ths of a bar, or 14/100ths of a foot. Well, finally, we're going to put another benchmark down, and this does not represent an entire foot or an entire unit in length. It only represents 0.14 units. So this distance here is 0.14 units. But what we can see here is that there's another ratio laid out as the circumference, which happens to be the blue line, to the diameter, which are the purple bars here. And if we were to add up these benchmarks, the lengths here, well, that's 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, plus 0.14 units, so it's 3.14 units. So the circumference to the diameter gives us pi still as 3.14. Alright guys, it looks like there was just a little bit of technical difficulty. I had to restart the recorder back up, so hopefully everything looks okay on the screen. The last thing I want to talk about, I have this ratio, circumference to the diameter, and the bars that I set up below, well, they're not matching up with this ratio 100%. So the best way to do this is, to fix it, is I'm going to copy this blue bar below. Because earlier I said if this blue bar, it represented the circle unrolled. So if we were to take this circle and unroll it, or let it unravel into one straight bar, that would represent the blue bar. Well, if this blue bar represents the length of the outer edge of the circle, it has to be the length of the circumference, or it actually is the circumference of the circle. And I'm going to place this above the purple bar. The reason I'm placing it above the purple bar again is because in our ratio, the circumference is in the numerator's value, where it comes first. The ratio is the circumference to the diameter, and if we look below again, now I have the blue bar represented as the circumference, and the purple bar represents either the diameter of this circle, or it represents the length of your metal from your company. In either case, the values are the same for both the diameter of the circle or the metal for your company, so both of those can represent the diameter. So the ratio of the circumference to the diameter here, or again that ratio of the circumference to the diameter here, gives us the value for pi, which is approximately 3.14. We can see these bars laid out here. It took about 3.14 bars of steel. Cool stuff, guys. I'll see you in another video.